do you have ADHD or autism and you're constantly feeling like you're mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted, isolating yourself from your friends, family, or partners, you're procrastinating a lot, feeling anxious and depressed a lot, as well as a lot of other symptoms? Well, if that's the case, then you might be in a constant cycle of the freeze response and or a neurodivergent burnout. So what is the freeze response and what is a neurodivergent burnout? The freeze response is when our brain gets so overwhelmed and scared by a real or perceived threat that it pretty much shuts down the brain and the body. A neurodivergent burnout is a chronic state of feeling mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted due to chronic stress. What are the similarities and the differences between a neurodivergent burnout and the freeze response? Similarities include emotional and physical fatigue, social withdrawal, and cognitive overload. Here are some of the differences. Neurodivergent burnout is usually caused by long-term stress and overstimulation, whereas the freeze response is usually triggered by an immediate, real, or perceived threat. Neurodivergent burnout can be long-lasting and can persist anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months to even longer. The freeze response is usually short-term and can last a couple of minutes to a couple of hours. The negative physical and emotional impact that is caused by a neurodivergent burnout is usually long-lasting, whereas the freeze response is usually pretty immediate and subsides once the threat is gone. So too long didn't read. Basically, the freeze response usually lasts a couple of minutes, hours, or even just a day, whereas a neurodivergent burnout is feeling these symptoms for weeks, months, or even longer. However, it is possible to be experiencing a constant cycle of the freeze response while in a neurodivergent burnout.